at this moment in time, high noon, on this beautiful day, June 17th, and Wednesday. And so we come into the awareness of the experience of what it means to gather together, to integrate all of our vibrations in this field of light, in this field of love. And it's so, so powerful. So, so powerful. And so we simply say, "Come, Holy Spirit, O beloved one." We are now in the presence of pure being. We are immersed in the Holy Spirit, in the presence of life, of love, and of wisdom. And so we acknowledge that presence and we acknowledge that power and now dissolve our human limitations. And from that pure substance of love, bring into manifestation our world according to your perfect plan. And so it is. Hello, everyone. I'm so delighted to see you here. So thrilled that we are here with Anne Ortelee today, even though sometimes our attendance on the live calls is not as much as it could be. What I know is that many, and it goes into the 100, 200, 300 people look at it on replay because it's not always easy to adjust time frames on what we call life in the human plane. And so I am so thrilled and that we're together today. Wow,
Thanks.
what a
Yeah.
journey it's been.
Yes.
You have a renowned reputation, and one of the pieces of that renowned reputation is in your biography, where you are, in essence, a predictive astrologer.
Yeah.
And I don't hear too many people talking about being predictive astrologers. And somehow it's becoming more and more important in my world because
Hmm.
what I see is that we, that includes the world, the country, all of the people on this call, and all of the people who will listen to this call, it includes you and me, and we're in the process of a collective shift, and there can be surprises. What I want you to talk about at some point, and maybe we'll do it um, toward the beginning, because I
Okay.
feel like that would sort of set the stage.
Set the stage. Yeah.
And and the surprise for me that initiated our friendship, we've never met in person.
Mm. Just on the
And
Zoom. Yeah.
we meet online and I do annual progressive hour and a half hour calls with you, updating where I'm at on the cosmic calendar, on the astrological
Um,
framework. And it has become so important to me.
mhm.
Every single morning, one of the things I look forward to doing, and I didn't send this out in the email, but I look forward to reading Your Cup Full of Stars.
Mhm.
And I've signed and subscribed to it. And so this was the one from today. And interestingly, this is a fabulous day for
I
this.
know you picked a really good day. Yeah.
gifts of brilliance from the heavens. You're exactly where you are supposed to be, and you suddenly understand this. Whoa, that's
Oh, yeah.
you.
And I'm not in charge. I just write the stuff, the guy, the heavens upstairs guide us, In Genesis, it says the stars are in heaven to guide you. And of course, the wise men, the magi, they followed a star to find Christ, right? And in that year, there was a big conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, the teacher and the karma together in Pisces, the sign of the fish. So he was a fisher of men, and so it's and they came and said, there's a king born somewhere around here, and we want to find him. So it's astrology is very magical.
It
Very
is.
bad. And honest to God, Marge, I have no idea how it works. I just every day, at least maybe twice a day, I'll go, wow, boy, that's kind of cool. That look at that, it just did it. So where we are now as a culture, we've had, planets are in one of four elements, earth, air, fire, or water. So the last 35 years, they've been in earth and water, which is very grounding and very stabilizing. They've shifted over the last year into fire and air. And think about fire, the difference between earth, which holds things, and water, which is contained by the container it's in, whether it's a vase or a jar. Now we got fire and air. Think about air, the wind blowing and it's in and it's out and the fire, is it a match fire? Is it a fireplace fire or is it candles? And so we have the planets shifting, the background planets, like the Broadway show. So if you've ever been to a show and the actors come in front of the curtain and the curtains are pulled, and they do a scene and when the curtains open, there's a whole new backdrop. That's what we're having right now, which is very disorienting for many people because it feels like the old life is leaving, and it is, but it gave us a foundation. And so now we're supposed to vision Neptune, have a vision of the new structures, Saturn, that we want to build that work collectively to help us change things. So it's very important for each of us in our own lives, in our own chart. We're all here on Earth at this time. So we all have a job to do. I'm a Virgo. What's your job? And your chart describes your job, but it also describes where these new energies are going to be taking you over the next 35 years. Now, in my case, I'm 71, so I'm probably not going to be here all 35, but what's my vision? And I have a job to do because I'm here on Earth. So we all have a vision, we all have a job, we all have a purpose. And so it's the old cycles are kind of shifting. Now, when we had them happen the last time, astrologers for many, many years have consulted, it's called astrology called mundane, which talks about the world events. So the last time two of these planets got together was 88, 89. So that was the Berlin Wall falling and Europe combining, and it was also the USSR breaking up. So now they're meeting again in the sign of war. And unfortunately, they're at the bottom of the Declaration of its charts. Countries have charts, people have charts. The Declaration of Independence was signed. It has a chart. And the Saturn Neptune, which is the structure, is at the bottom of the Declaration of Independence. So the United States, and it's on a thing called a world point, which means everybody in the world is noticing. We're having this dissolving of our structures, and we see it all over the world, all over the country, but we're also dissolving all the structures in the world. And so everybody's aware of all these structures are changing and they're negotiating. Well, what I want to do is go this way. Well, what I want to do is go that way. And so that job that we're in now is started, and it really starts in earnest this summer because all the planets are now in their new signs, but when a planet's less than 3 degrees, it's considered a baby planet, but they all get to 4 in July. So now they're old. Think about it when you were a 4-year-old. You knew what you wanted to wear. You didn't want to wear those socks. You liked carrots. You did not like broccoli. So the planets are all getting decisive in July, and they're going to say, so what's your vision? Where are you going? What's new? And because it's fire and air, it's very changeable. So that part can be a little disorienting too. But the idea is we're all in this together. And all of us need to say, my vision is this. This is the structure I want to build in my own life. And I want to work at supporting in my community. And I want to work at supporting in the greater world. And so that's the challenge we're being met with. But of course, when a cycle ends, kind of like when you graduate or you give birth, there's the end of your single life, the end of your college, and now you're off into a new adventure. You got a baby, you got to get a job, you got to find an apartment, you got to pay rent. So we're at this very transitional thing, but because there's 5 planets changing at the same time, we're all very wobbly. So appreciating the wobble, but understanding, well, my vision is that, and it might be a vision just for 20 minutes, and that's okay. And then the next vision, and then the next vision, because that's what the heavens are doing. They're windy. The candles are blowing out. It's a fireplace. It's a match. It's in and out in a second. Hang on, it settles down in about 2 years. I know people go 2 years, but about 2 years from now. And then we kind of really start to grow things. But right now we're in the wobbly phase. So that's the opening. You said you wanted to do astrology at the front. And basically, it's the difference between earth and water: solid, reliable, dependable. The water doesn't move, the earth doesn't move. I mean, maybe on an earthquake, but most of us don't live in California. But fire and air, all over the place. Now, if you are an earth or water sign, it's much more destabilizing than if you're a fire and air. So the earth and water signs are Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn or earth, water or Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. The fire signs are the Leos, the Sagittarius, and the Aries. They're very busy. And the air signs are the Geminis, the Libras, and the Aquarians. And the Geminis and the Aquarians are very busy. The Libras are kind of watching everybody do stuff. So it's big. It's really big. And again, it happens once every 35 years. So you're alive in 88, 89. Now you got the next chapter.
So it's really fascinating to me because most of my life, I
Mm-hmm.
even think I never ever it never occurred to me to take astrology seriously. It was entertainment. And I
Yeah.
would read the short little blurbs in the newspaper occasionally. And that was it. I knew nothing about astrology. And then the pandemic hit in
Mm-hmm.
2019 and we were housebound. We couldn't go out of the house because of all of the alarm, and especially in California, everything shut down. And that was when I signed up for Astrology Hub for a year-long program that I thought would be entertainment and interesting, but I never ever thought I would take it seriously because I never had. And all of a sudden, Ann Ortelee was one of the early teachers in that year that I signed up.
2 years, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you were only supposed to teach for 1 or 2 months, and then you talked with Amanda and said, "I think I could help you through this difficult year."
Yeah.
She agreed, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, I was listening to every word you said. And Rick Tarnas was another one I was introduced to and listened to every word he said.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of other astrologers that have studied it for years and years and years professionally and know the reality of it being a divine language. Now, they don't call it a divine language. I use the word divine as a unity minister. I've always understood that there is a divine awareness and there's a human awareness. And
Yes.
part of awakening, waking up or enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, and I never have ever had any kind of ambition toward enlightenment, but some of it is happening not
Yeah,
because I had ambition toward it, but because I'm beginning to live it in a different way.
exactly.
And on my birthday, the year after I um, had that year-long exposure to it, I got on your website and thought, I'm going to give myself a birthday gift. I'm going to do a call, private, one-on-one with Anne,
Hmm.
and really find out the real deal about my chart, my natal chart.
Hmm.
And I'd had one reading a long time before, and that person, I no longer even have the recording of it. Nothing's recorded anymore. It's all different. And that person had told me, you came in at a very unusual time, and you have a purpose and a destiny. It's
Hmm.
in your chart, your destiny path. And I have my um, Pisces is filled with planets and the moon and the ascendant, which can be as important as your sun sign or sometimes more important. And it's at 29 degrees Pisces, 1 degree away from Aries. And
Right.
Aries is the great I am. I am that I am. It's about totally aware at an individual level. It's
Hmm.
not about a collective level until you shift totally into the beyond.
Right.
But I'm not there yet. I still live on the human plane.
Mhm.
I uh, met Ed when I was in my early 30s. He was also in his early 30s in 1972. And we had the experience, Ed especially, of seeing a radiance. And and that's related to vibrational astrology.
Yes. Hmm.
So tell us about that.
Okay, so basically, when you take your first breath of life, Horo is our Scopos's picture. So that's why it's important where you're born, because think of the sunrise and sunset every 4 minutes, the sun changes, right? So every 4 minutes, the degree on your ascendant changes. And in the course of the day, the sun rises, goes to the top, comes down, and sets. So knowing where your planets are is important. And then the planets have relationships like we do. There are planets that they're friendly with. There are planets that they don't like very much. And there's planets that they go, well, maybe we could work together, maybe not. So those relationships are just described by what sign the planet's in, because they can be in any one of 12 signs. So having last degree Pisces on the last degree of Pisces is called an anaretic degree. It's just at that moment of ripening and, as you said, going into the I am, but it also, that last degree sums up every sign and that's happened up until then. So it's a very wise energy. It's a kind of a spiritual, because as Pisces, what Pisces do is they see people's souls. They're not here to make a lot of money. I mean, they can make money, they can do all that, but they really are here to work with people's souls and their own soul, because they're in this evolutionary state. So the relationships between the planets are described as, they're called aspects. And some planets like each other, some planets don't. Some planets are in signs they don't like. Like they don't like being in that sign because it's mean or whatever. And some are in really, really happy. And kind of that's your chart. You have all these planets that are in there doing things. So for most of life, there were, looking at the charts, there were what we call the big Ptolemaic aspects, which are the big five. Ptolemy described them way back when, the dawn of astrology. But now we have computers. So what computers let you do is they let you do what are called harmonics. Now, when you hit a piano, when you hit the key, it has three strings to it. So what a harmonic says is your planets have all these vibrations to them, and I can put them in a computer and run them and tell you your top vibrations. And it's a kind of astrology called vibrational. And I've been doing it with the big five, for years and years and years. But now we can go higher and wider. And so they have done studies that bipolar, you can see bipolar in the harmonics. You can see, creative people being addicted to you, people, you being able to do the rapture. So the current president of the United States has this energy in his chart that's very magnetic. And while some of us may not like him, there are people that are very attracted to that magnetic energy he possesses. And it's in his chart, right? And again, you can see it in some ways. You go, okay, well, he's got this and this, but that call that people have where they're so attracted, that's that's in his chart. So the vibrations are different levels, and they can be good or bad because some of them aren't nice, but they can also teach you how to work with different skill sets you have. And so the idea of astrology is I was like you know, I read the little blurb thing and I broke up with my ex. It was a 14 and a half year relationship. He met somebody else and who was born the day after him. So I was like, all right, you ran off with yourself. That makes sense. So I went for an astrology reading. And I get to the part where I start to cry. And I say, there was this guy, and my astrology teacher takes out this book of numbers, which is called an ephemera. So he looks him up. What's his birthday? And then he starts talking to me about him. And I was like, how do you know all that? How do you know all that? I'm a Virgo. I like to know how things work. So the women who had referred me to him, because they said, you're at a big crossroads in your life, which is a lot of times when people come to see astrologers at those crossroads. Like you found it at the crossroads of COVID, right? And I went away for the weekend. One of them had a summer house, and one of them said, he teaches. So I got home on Monday and I called and I said, I want to learn how you did that. So I sat on his couch for 2.5 years and learned astrology. And about 2 months in, as a Virgo, I'm like, this is our user manual. Why don't we learn this in first grade, like math or reading? Like when I'm upset, the best thing for me to do is go take a bath or go take a nap because I have a moon in Pisces, or get in a swimming pool, right? Well, there are no swimming pools in New York, but the one in Florida, I'm in all the time, right? So it gives you a comfort. And so one of my favorite stories, I had a mother that was all earth, 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 earth. And she had this little water child who would come home from pre-K or daycare, stand in the kitchen window on the first floor of their apartment going, I'm going to kill myself, And I said to her mother, put her in the bathtub, put her in the shower. So one day she's having a little temper tantrum in the kitchen and she goes, I know, I need to take a shower. And she stomped off and she took a shower. And as a water child, immersing yourself in water, she comes out, she's a happy little kid. As an earth child, doing something physical. As a fire child, go out and run, go talk to somebody, get out there. As an air child, pick up the phone and call somebody, or go for a walk, or read a book. Each of the signs get happy doing their thing. And so do your thing and it'll help you calm down or direct your energy. So I was like, we should learn this like in first grade. And here she was, a little 3.5-year-old, 4-year-old. I know I should take a shower. And then, hi, mom. So I find it very magical. And so I started studying and I was a corporate girl. I was in computers. And so to me, it's your computer programming. So when I told my father I was going to go and become an astrologer, he said he wanted his college tuition money back. And I said to him, write the school. You didn't give it to me. You gave it to the college. Like, I'm going to go do this now, Dad, and he's like, what? But once you start learning about it and studying it and you just go, it's been around thousands and thousands and thousands of years and people have relied on it and used it, and it's in every culture, different in every culture. The Vedic and the Hindu, the monks, they all believe in reincarnation. We're Western, which is like, no, you die and go to heaven. But having studied those kinds of astrology, I'm kind of like, well, I think we do maybe have past lives, because I always thought heaven sounded a little boring, frankly. But like what, you die and just sit around and eat bonbons for eternity? Like that just doesn't seem fun. But when you learn, because all the different cultures understand, as above, so with below, as without, so within. So the chart kind of shows you, and then the planets moving around above your head. And also you've ripened from being a little baby. You've ripened from when you met Ed in June of 72 to now, which is what, 45 years later, 55 years later, right? Yeah. So yeah, so it's like, think about how much everything has changed. So that's what we also do, is we ripen your chart, which in astrology language we call progressed, which is like, where have you ripened to? and what's coming up for you now, so it's fun. And I have to say, I have interesting
Before
conversations
we
with
leave
people every day.
Ed,
Yeah.
let's let you use us as an example
Yeah.
again. Uh, if either one of us gets into our grumpy phase, and my Pisces loves to either um, go into the water.
Mhm.
And interestingly, I have a very large soaking bathtub that I can use, but I don't often enough. I need to remember that.
Mhm.
And I can also, as a fire sign, go and read, which I absolutely love doing. I
Mhm.
read after book and highlight lines, and yeah, I love reading. Now, Ed is a Libra, so what is his go-to if he gets grumpy?
He would not talk to whoever he's grumpy with, but he would go make a relationship with somebody else. And he watches. Like, he sat there and he told the story. I watched those two guys talking to her, and she had a luminescence. And so when they walked away, I zoomed right in. So Libras are cardinal signs, and they know who they want to talk to and who they don't want to, but they partner. They need to partner. Partnering is very important. Or kind of like a tennis match, they say something, you say something. So they need to chat. Also reading, because Libra is librarians and books. So I'm sure Ed's a big reader. And they also are storytellers. So when he tells a story or he reminisces about something, if you think about the people that are in his life that are here forever, because Libras very rarely lose people unless they're really badly behaved. They kind of say, no, I'm going to adjust the relationship a little bit like this, because that would be better, but I'm not ending I'm just shifting it, I'm changing it a little. And because they know that the relationship needs to be adjusted. So imagine a tennis match, you need somebody to tennis with, but then they also have this desire to kind of connect and make it balanced and fair. So they'll be talking about, well, maybe the way we can rebalance this, because Libras are all about, and if you watch them, they kind of rock like this. Like, if you're ever standing talking to a Libra, they go back and forth on their feet because they're always seeking balance, but also ideas. So his air works with your fire. So that's what gives you all those really good conversations too.
Very fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to your life.
All right, let's go to my life.
And the
Now,
first
this was
picture,
interesting because no one's ever asked me to do this. So it was kind of the
I love
process of
it.
picking the pictures was a lot of fun too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you picked more than the eight that Garth.
Well, I'm a Virgo. I'm like, you get to pick which ones you want out of them. Yeah.
No. And so, uh, tell us about your father and your mother.
Okay. All right. So that picture was me in utero there. I'm in the picture too. That's Dad's graduation from medical school. So my parents met a couple weeks after my mother's 16th birthday. And like Ed, my mother was dating my father's best friend. And my father's an Aries, and he saw my mother, who's a Leo, and he's like, I kind of like her. But my father they were all 16, 17, and it was my mother's boyfriend's sister's wedding, right? So my father had a few too many cocktails and vomited. So my mother was not impressed. But he's 17 and a half, right? So he's an Aries. They pursue what they like. So they got together and dated in high school and dated through college. And she went to nursing school. And then he went to medical school. And then in 1952, they got married when she graduated from nursing school. And when he graduated from medical school, I was in the picture because they were graduating. They were going to go be an intern, not making a lot of money, making $12,000 a year back in 1954. But I was in the picture. And they decided at Christmas that, okay, it's time to have a baby. And one shot, I'm here, right? So I arrived in September. My dad went on OBGYN for July and August, figuring I'd come then, but I was late. The story of my life with my father. And there was a party on Saturday. And my mother left September 11th, 1954. My mother left. She went into labor, left the party. And then I have Aquarius rising, which is groups. So I lead groups, I run groups, I run projects, all different kinds of groups, houses on Fire Island. So the whole group of interns came to the delivery room and they were all there when I was born. And my mother's like, she can't go anywhere. One of them got dressed up as a moaner and came into the room wailing and screaming. And my mother's like, oh my God, I got a screamer. And it ended up being one of the doctors that was an intern that year. And they all showed up for my birth and they gambled on me. And I have a Venus Saturn aspect, which is the denial of money to the father, right? And among other things. And my father said, you cost me money when you arrived on Earth. I said, you should have bet that I was a girl. So, so that was my arrival into a group of interns who were all there to see the first baby born in the intern class that year in St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester, New York. So that was my entrance onto Earth. So
Incredible.
incredible. And my father took pictures, which my mother would never let me see.
This is
That's
a
me.
picture of you and your mother and your father.
Yep.
And
Right
tell
after I got here. And so then they weren't feeding me enough because there was the Dr. Spock or whatever. And so they were bottle feeding or whatever. And I was yelling a lot. And my father came off a 72-hour intern. He's walking me, trying to keep me quiet. He said, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna flush you down the toilet. And my mother was like, give me the kid, so all good. My mother was a Leo, my dad was an Aries, so they had a very, very passionate relationship, and loved each other dearly. But it was a little fiery, and I'm a little earth and water baby going, I don't have enough food. Give me the food. So all good.
and the next, and you sent me some with your brothers and sisters, but
Mm.
I could only
And
choose 8.
I know you got your
So,
limit.
and
You have good boundaries, Marge. I don't. I'm like, here, have some pictures. You pick.
how many brothers and sisters do you
I have
have?
one of each. I'm the oldest, obviously. And then my brother, when my dad finished internship, they didn't really have any money. So he was in public health service in Georgia. So my brother was born in Georgia. And then they went back for the residency neurology in Albany, and my sister was born in Albany. And then when he graduated from neurology residency, we moved back to Rochester when I was
Rochester's your
or
hometown.
Rochester, New York. When I was born in Rochester, but I was wandering around that first 6 years and went back when I was in first grade.
So it's very interesting. I have some connections in Rochester and lived there a very brief period of time before my second divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating. And one time you said to me, I always look at charts and wonder if this is a person I could work with. I doubt that you remember saying that, but you said, our charts have that in it. And here we are doing this call, which you said,
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone do anything like this.
Yeah, no, and I think it's I always, because you have the other part is you're an astrologer, you have biases, right? So my astrology teacher taught me trust the chart. Clients do lie. Chart never lies. But then also note how your chart interacts with theirs so you can see where you're going to impact them or not, like what your job is with them, because every time you have an interaction with anybody, you're interacting with them and their chart. So when you meet somebody and you go, or you meet somebody like Ed, watching you across the room going, oh my God, she's glowing. I have to go find the light of Marge. There's an energy that we set out. And that's an important component of this whole process of interact. Because all of our life, our way we learn is our interactions with other people, good, bad, or indifferent. And they come and they affect our chart, and they come and affect the person who we're interacting with chart. Yeah. So it's
And shortly after we met,
mhm.
uh, uh, Ed moved in with me.
I know. I remember.
And went back to school, which changed his life. He always says, you changed my life. And he said, I grew up when I met you.
Mhm.
and and um, we had, I'm an Aries, he's a Libra. We had a very, very passionate relationship for 3 years. And then I took off to go to New York uh, and ultimately to Massachusetts to do my doctoral degree. So it's fascinating how it all fits together. But I want
And then
to get back to you.
back to Ed 30 years later, right? It's like the cycles that we repeat. Yeah.
Exactly.
And he never let you go. I mean, you were always still in his heart, right? Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, I remember him telling people there were three important things that changed my life, and I was one of them. And going into the Navy was another. And so,
Mhm.
anyway, back to you.
Yep.
This picture,
Hmm.
this is when you are probably, you were guessing when you said early 20s.
Early 20s, yeah, 1979, probably. Yeah.
And probably 1979, you're holding a cat.
The little
Cats
cat.
are very important in your life. Talk
Yeah, we love the cats. Yeah. Well, I've always had animals. So when dogs or cats, but living in an apartment, I prefer a cat because you don't have to walk them. But dog story, my father was receiving a shipment of 100 dogs as a medical student. And my mother comes over to the place and there's this cute little puppy dancing. My father's an Aries. He doesn't always follow the rules. So he took the little puppy out and he gave it to my mother. And they brought Pogo home. Pogo was in that family a year before I was. So he gets a call the next morning from the lab going, there's only 99 dogs. Where's the other dog? You accepted a shipment. You said there were 100, there's only 99. And my father's like, well, I gave one to Donna. I'll go get another dog at the shelter and I'll bring it over, which is what he did. And so Pogo was my dog. I mean, it followed me around. My grandmother hated it because Pogo would dig a hole and I would go through the hole, and then Pogo would bark, and he was with me. I was on my adventures and Pogo was there, you know. And so that Pogo was 13 when he passed, or 14 when he passed. I was 13. And we always had pets. So Pogo always would escape and he always took his collar off. So when my parents buried him in the backyard, they put his collar on. And then my father was like, no, got to put the collar next to him because he never wore a collar. So they buried him under the bird bath, which is where he slept a lot. He liked to watch the birds. And then we always had dogs and animals. We had Linus and Snoopy. We had Amos and Andy. We had Mr. Higgins. We had Goldie. We had who else? There were like five or six. We had a lot of dogs. Last one was Amos. Last one was Andy. And then we had cats. My sister had Tigger, and then we had Mr. Bibbs. And so Mr. Bibbs would go out. He was an outdoor cat, and he would go out and pick a fight, come home all beaten up. And so my father would, because my father's a little cheap too, he would fix him up and he would be in the house. And then when he backed up and sprayed against the kitchen cupboard, my mother would be like, all right, you're better. Out the door you go. And so we had lots of kittens. One year, the Dessauer girls came ringing the doorbell for trick or treat, and my father gave each of them a kitten and brought him home and got a call from Joan Dessauer going, Mark. He's like, you don't want to take away the trick or treat for the kids, right? So we had lots of animals, and mainly there was a bunny, there were some gerbils, there were some hamsters, but always cats and dogs, always cats and dogs. And so that was a new kitten that had just arrived in the family, and her name that was Shank, named ultimately. Yeah.
uh, and
Or
then
Mulligan. That was Mulligan. That was Mulligan coming in. Yeah. And we grew up when I was in eighth grade, we moved to a farm, like 6 acres with barns, and we had geese eggs, yeah. My father expected us to go pick vegetables in the backyard, which really was not what his children wanted to do. But he was like, I planted it, you should pick it. And we're like, yeah, you planted it, you pick it. And it's all good. But yeah, we always had cats and dogs. So that's me sitting holding the kitten. So
and example potentially of vibrational
Yes.
is I was just thinking about, I wonder about how the farm worked into this. And you
Mm.
immediately answered the question before I ever
Yes.
asked.
Right. My parents liked when we left church on Sunday, if we drove this way, we were going home. If we drove that way, we were going to go look at houses. My parents liked to look at houses. And so we went around and we lived in a nice U-shaped street. When my sister went to kindergarten, there were 15 kids going to kindergarten the same year on the bus. So it was all young parents with young kids, and they would go, we're going to the Brimmers, we're going to the Anders, we're going. And so we always knew where they were, and they were a couple houses away. And, at any rate, my parents had decided to stay in the house we were in. They were cutting down the tree in the backyard to make an addition to the house. And my mother said to my dad when he came home, there was this farm that they'd always liked was up for sale. So they called the realtor. Went over and made a appointment to visit 10 o'clock Saturday morning when the tree was getting cut down in the backyard. And they walked through the kitchen. And my father said, I'd like to put a bid in on the house. And my mother's like, what? Now remember, we're in Aries with a Leo, right? So they were very fiery. So he put a bid in on it. And there were developers that wanted to tear the house down. And it was an old farmhouse built in 1826. It was part of the Underground Railroad. Lafayette of the American Revolution stayed there when he traveled through northern upstate New York. It was a beautiful, beautiful house and two barns and a windmill and outhouses and an orchard and all this stuff. And the land around had been sold and now was developed. So the developers wanted to tear the house down. And Mrs. Pearson said, I need to meet the kids. So they came back and got us. We went back over. Obviously, we passed. She sold it to my dad. She was widowed at that time and was looking to downsize. And my mother was really mad because all her friends were on this street, like, what are you doing? Why are you taking me away from my street? So it took a few months to get in there. My mother cried a lot. It was kind of not easy. My aunt left the convent at the same time. So my aunt packed us all up and we all moved, my father's sister. And my mother kept going to the doctor and she wasn't getting her period, right? Because back then you didn't have the tests. And the doctor's like, finally, like before, he said, are you upset? My husband's making me move. And she burst into tears. But once we got there, it was great and everybody had a wonderful time and it was a beautiful house and my parents entertained a lot, because he was a physician. She was very active in charities and ran the PTA and very active in the school board and stuff like that. And then because he wanted her home by 3 when we all got home because he was a latchkey kid back in the 1930s. So my mother was always home. So our house was always a gathering place for tons and tons of people. And we had the barns in the backyard, so people came from towns around to play freeze tag in the barn. I had my first kiss in the barn. Um, and then they tore the barns down when I was in college because my mother said they're a hazard. And a kid could get hurt out there because nobody's playing out there. You kids are all gone off to school. So they tore the barns down and they sold the land, keeping the house, but they sold the land and 5 houses went up on that block. But it was a great barn and people still talk about the barn, and playing in the barn. My mother would make everybody sign in with their phone numbers, in case somebody got hurt, but nobody ever got hurt. And it was a lot of fun. Freeze tag and, you had your friends come over, you run around the barn, you're talking. Yeah, it was a good time. And then, of course, my father expected us to garden, which that part I'm not going to go pick
Let's
tomatoes,
take
but
another leap.
yeah, yeah. So,
Go
but that was
the
the
next
energy.
picture.
That
This
was I was a bridesmaid that picture. And I thought that's like me, like 83 model. It was right after my mom had passed because she died early of colon cancer. And and that was kind of one of those pictures I always look at and go, I can glam up. I don't normally. I'm normally looking like this, but that particular wedding, my friend was very adamant that we all had to do hair and makeup. So we had to show up and they did that to me. And I thought, oh, I look pretty good there. So I'll send that into March too. Yeah. So that was my friend Mary Ann Odenbach's wedding. I was a
and and this is before or after your own love who left you and
oh no, that he came in 77, 79. Yeah, 77 in there, met him and I changed work. So it kind of started in 79. Yeah, 79. Yeah, I have it somewhere. But at any rate, it ended in 94. So that was in Rochester. He didn't come to the wedding. So
And then this surprise shift in your life, which you've mentioned, after the breakup with
yep.
him,
Mhm.
you went to an astrologer for the very first time. And
Yep.
that was what year?
That was June 18th, 1994.
And so
Friday afternoon.
amazing, amazing, everything. Before that, your jobs had been in business. And tell us a little bit about your
I
background.
was I was in insurance for AIG. Well, my first boss in New York was a crook. So I helped send her to jail for stealing $10 million from the federal government. But that's a story for another day. My paychecks all bounced. She had loan sharks. I did money drops to loan sharks. I saw my first naked penis because I was 21 and a virgin. And this loan shark wanted to date me. And I'm like, you're like my father. Say, want to go to Sparks Steakhouse. And there was an assassination on Sparks in the sidewalk in front of the steakhouse because it was a mob hangout. I'm like, I don't think so. So one day he greeted me with an erect penis and gray chest hair. I did not know chest hair when pubic hair was gray. I'm like, so I said, I went back to the office. I said, I'm never going there again, never going there again. So she had an article in People magazine in August of 76. And my mother wrote that she was going to start a business for women investing, a small business administration loan for women in business. So my mother, because my paychecks were bouncing, and this woman went with loan sharks, and there's all this stuff. I mean, it was like that, wide-eyed little 21-year-old virgin in New York. So my mother wrote a letter to Congressman Horton. This woman's a crook. Don't do it. And he wrote back, we have no record. Well, a few years later, she got caught, and I got called by the DA in the Southern District, the feds. Did your mother write this letter? Did you work for this woman? I said, I did actually. Well, we have your mother's letter. I'm like, okay. So I testified at her trial and she went to jail. Because she stole a lot of money. Drugs, bought farm, bought an airplane that got picked up by the DEA drug running for the whoever she was in with then. She had a different mafia guy called the legs account that if she didn't make a payment, the guy would break her brother's legs because they don't hurt women. I mean, just stuff that you go, this is like a really bad movie. But I left there and I got a job at AIG, American International Group, which is an insurance company in methods and procedures, which was good because I would go around and look at their procedures and try and make them better. And we hired this company to come in and computerize some of our programs. And that's when I met my ex because he was the sales rep. So that kind of made me go, I think I want to go work at his company because I think he's really cute. And so anyway, I interviewed at the company and I got the job and I went there. And then I was there. We were selling computer services to companies like AIG and different people. So I sold to the insurance industry and the finance industry at AIG, and then I switched because the PCs came in and we were really shifting the way insurance worked, or the way computers worked, and I moved to press one if you want this, press two if you want that, because at that point those machines were new. I moved to that company and sold those for about a year, and then went out on because my old clients were calling me and saying, can you come help us program on these PCs? So I was like, okay. And Mike, my boyfriend at the time, was like, you should do this. You make a lot of money consulting. So I started doing that and I kept interviewing, but I ended up doing, all right, I got a job offer from IBM and I was kind of jerking around going in for the health exam and stuff. And he's like, why don't you just agree to do it? I'm like, I'm afraid I'm going to be lonely. You're not lonely. You're talking to clients all day long. You're sitting in their offices. What are you talking about? So, anyway, I had started my own business. I did that for 10 years. And then we had 9/11, not 9/11, we had year 2K. So, some of my clients from AIG had gone to work for Pepsi. So, I got a call to come and do project management for installations all over the country, converting legacy systems, old systems that weren't compliant with year 2K, going to 2000 from 19, because storage used to be expensive. Now it's very cheap. But you would just put in the 2 digits, not the whole front part. So you had to convert all these software programs. So I traveled all over the country for a couple of years, putting these legacy systems to bed and putting in the new system. And then I knew in the meantime, I'd started studying astrology because I started studying astrology in 94. So I left Pepsi because they were going to give me a promotion, but it was a long commute. It was going to be a desk job and I didn't want to do that. So I thought, well, let me go to New York, find a job in New York and keep building the astrology. Maybe I'll go full time. So I ended up, my office blew up on 9/11. It was 2 blocks from the Trade Center. So I kind of took that as a cosmic sign because it was 7 years earlier I'd started studying astrology and then my office blew up and I was home because I was taking my birthday off. But my office mates got all caught in that black gray cloud. Remember the pictures of the people walking, looking really mad because they were covered in dust. So we were 2 blocks from the Trade Center. So I went down there like 1 or 2 times and it really was nasty. The dead body smell, the whatever was in the air. And my father was like, don't go there. I'm like, Dad, they're saying it's safe. He goes, don't go there, and my father was right. And that was when I went full time as an astrologer in 2001.
And so this is right at the end of your second act,
Yeah.
which is um, 25 to 50.
Yeah.
And and you're about 47 years old, and you
Mm-hmm.
end up going full time as an astrologer, which
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden are calling your passionate obsession.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
Passionate obsession. And
Obsession.
this is also around the time that the relationship ends. Is
Well,
that
that ended in 93
okay?
because it ended that the relationship ended and got me into astrology. Right. And then, so I was into astrology as of 94. The
And it's
relationship
very,
ended.
very
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, the relationship ended. Well, it's also even better than that, March, is there's a kind of progression. There's different ways of doing predictive work. So I wanted to learn this technique. And my astrology teacher, when it was like math or something he didn't teach, he would send me to this other guy who was very good, a guy named Ken Kimball, to learn it. So this is techniques called tertiary, and it's the emotional technique, right? It's not like your ego development over time, it's your emotional development over time. So Ken says to me, what's the worst day of your life? And I go, my mother's death, breaking up with Mike. And I went with breaking up with Mike. And I knew the day, I knew the time, I knew the minute, embedded in the brain there. And he pulls the chart up and he goes to me, Anne, the worst day of your life is John Marcasella's birthday. And John Marcasella was my astrology teacher. Now, this is years before I met John. The breakup was April of 93. I met John in June of 94, right? And so the year and 3 months, 4 months, I met all the people that said go to see John after I broke up with Mike. And I'm like, what? He goes, does John know this? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, right. You don't know what this means. I said, no, I'm here to learn it. He goes, the worst day of your life is John Marcasella's birthday. And I go, well, let me tell you, that guy's got a sucky chart. But what it meant was breaking up with Mike at that minute, at that time, at that day was John's chart kind of saying, this is your future coming in, even though you don't know it for a year and a half, 2 years. So it's called a tertiary progression, and it's an emotional progression, but it brought in him, which initially astrology was very healing because it's like, oh, this is your cycle. This is the natural time and the ending for it. Relationships end at 7 years, at 14 and a half years, at 22 years, at 29 years. It's time for a new cycle. And when John read my chart in June of 94, he said to me, well, didn't you break up with him 7 years ago? And I said, yes. And all my friends hated him. So when I went back with him, when he crawled back in through the doghouse door, I didn't tell anybody. So 7 years later, when I broke up with him again, they're all like, thought we got rid of him 7 years ago. I'm like, well, no, not really. But he was right. Didn't you break up with him? I'm like, yeah, you did. And he knew all this stuff, but it was also the worst day of my life was this guy's birthday. And actually, the chart is identical. I mean, identical to the minute. I've taught this a couple times at different conferences, but it also was the mark of, okay, that relation ends. If you think of it as destiny, when that hit, I went, wow. I mean, I was in the rolling around on the ground, very upset because the relationship ended, but I also was, the new door opened, even though I didn't know it had opened. So it's
And
very cool. Yeah.
we're going to jump again, take a
Jump
big,
again. Okay. Big leap.
because this is astrology in its later years. You're
Yes.
on a cruise ship.
Yep. That's last
And
year.
so this is more of a present picture,
Mhm.
but it's your life as an astrologer, and you're not only doing teaching online, you're doing Cupful of Stars, you're doing all kinds of things at very prestigious retreat centers like Omega, and you become renowned in the world of astrology and certified in three different organizations and attending their for and attending their conferences as a major keynote speaker, and also working with private clients as you have with me.
Yep.
And so it's really fascinating that you made this huge shift out of a background in business, which allowed you to put together an organization that had components of business in it, but was not focused on business. It was
Mhm.
focused on destiny paths
Yeah.
and a total shift. And that picture on the cruise ship takes you in to when you're almost 70 years old,
I was 70. Yeah.
70.
It was a
So
combo of 30 years because 94, right? I learned astrology and 70, so that was my 30 years being an astrologer and my 70-year birthday. So I had people that were friends that were birthday people, and then I had astrology people. And that was last summer. That was in June of last year. So we're coming up like in 5 days. Somebody just wrote, can you believe 5 years, just last year, 5 days ago, we were on the cruise and we went to Alaska. And in the middle parts when we were at sea, we had 10 hours of astrology and then 4 hours of stargazing. So it was very nice, although it was pretty cloudy. So we didn't really get to see many stars.
I haven't been on your cruise to Alaska, but I've been on a cruise, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
And let's go back to this beautiful integration that you do in your life of adventure, love of venture, and love of beauty, and love of uh, uh, passion of home and place, and uh, during the time that you were teaching at Astrology Hub, when I first met you online, you
Mhm.
bought a second home and on the Gulf side of um, Florida
Mhm.
near Palm Beach.
No, no, St. Pete, St. Pete. Palm Beach is East Coast.
Yeah, St. Petersburg. So,
Yes.
and so is it on the Gulf side or
Well,
Pacific?
it's on the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, the
Oh,
water you see there is called Boca Ciega Bay. So St. Petersburg Beach comes down, and there's a bay between St. Petersburg Beach and St. Petersburg. And my apartment looks at the bay, but right over that little landmass is the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah.
and so you kept your apartment in New York.
And here you can see the tree. Yep.
Here's the big city girl that loves New York City living.
Yeah.
And you also have this passion around beauty and loving to go to Florida for the winters in New York, which get to be cold, and the winters in Florida are quite wonderful.
You
And
can
so,
go swimming every day. Yeah.
and this was the last picture of the eight that I chose. And
Mm,
this is when you go to a dog beach
yeah, yeah,
where
that,
there is uh,
mhm.
an area where you can be out with your arms wide open and enjoying the sun.
That was St. Patrick's Day weekend that week. I had
Uh-huh.
friends come in and we rented the you see there's a little fringe there and we rented a thing to go to the beach, like a little cabana. And we went over to Pasagrille Beach, which is right, it's like 3/4 of a mile from my house. So
And
yeah, you're looking happy. You're sitting on the beach going, duh, it's like the best place to go. Yeah.
the living the beautiful life.
Hmm,
Part
hmm.
of that beautiful life includes flower arranging.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love flowers. I just love beauty in general, and so I had gotten a friend of mine had mailed me or sent me flowers from this florist. So I looked them up and they're in St. Pete and they had flower arranging classes. So you go for 2 hours and you get a vase and you get all these flowers and you come home with this beautiful arrangement and then the vase and they give you wine and cheese and coffee and whatever, but it's really more you learn flower technique. Did you know daffodils are mean? The daffodils are very nasty and they kill people. They kill other flowers. So we had a little daffodil in that arrangement. We had to milk it and wash it so it wouldn't kill the other flowers. Who knew daffodils were mean? But you learn, it's like, ongoing learning. You go do flower arranging and learn that daffodils are nasty, so all good.
Fascinating, fascinating. And the other thing that I wanted to encourage people to do is to go on your website. The link to your website is actually in your, um, that link takes you to this amazing website where your picture is. I love this picture of you, which we use as our headshot.
That's my assistant's boyfriend took that picture. Yeah.
Ah.
That is Jesus Ward's picture. I was like, wow, I look good. And he's like, you do. I'm like, all right.
You look
I look like that. I mean,
beautiful.
that's what I look like when I'm cleaned up, Marge. Put a little makeup, a little lipstick, a little whatever, and I'm like, and then I go, but then there's Schlubby Ann, the one you're working with right now, which is like, I got my little schmata on and I'm a happy girl and I had my English muffin this morning, so it's all good.
And you take your cat back and forth with you.
Yes, Remo and I fly. He gets gabapentin. When I went to the vet to get him initially, I said, I know that name. He goes, it's a date rape drug. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going through the airport and he's all drugged and the carrier goes through the x-ray machine. So I'm standing there and he's like, like this. And the guy next to me goes, my cat would rip my face off. I said, I date raped him. I gave him a date rape drug. And the guy goes, like that, like gabapentin, it's how you fly with a cat. And so he gets drugged and then we fly and then he gets here and then he kind of staggers around a little and then he's fine. So he gets date rape drug twice a year when he go down there and come back. So
And let's go into the time where we take sort of a small pause break before um, we go into the last time of our program, which we have
okay.
about 25 minutes left.
Hmm.
And let me tell you about uh, the guest for next month. I'm very excited about this. The guest for next month is Ewan Townhead, and he lives in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And he's one of the youngest guests we've had on this broadcast because he's only in his 40s and he's recently written his first book, and it's called Artist, Merchant, and Seeker. And today, this very day, it's being released, and it's really a distillation of all of the years of work of his life, and it answers big questions. How can we walk the path of work, our own unique path, and include all of ourselves in the journey? As I read that, I thought of you, Anne, and I thought that's exactly what you do. So,
Exactly.
so have you ever considered writing a book?
Yeah, I actually have a couple in process. Yep. And there's a book editor, Gail Gonzalez, who's really wonderful. She came as a client and she's followed me and for whatever, my podcasts and stuff. And she's like, she started with, you need to write a book. I'm like, okay. And so what's happened now is my great grandchildren have written books. So she keeps track, who references having studied with me in their front thing. So she goes, your great, I think I'm up to three great grandchildren have written books. Where's your book? So I have a book idea, which I'm working on called If It's in Your Heart, It's in Your Chart. And then, because a lot of times, and this, when you're talking to someone, especially you're talking to them about what they really want to do, a lot of times limitations are externally imposed that they've internalized, where they go, well, they said I could never do that, it wouldn't make any money. Oh, I shouldn't do that, I should do this. And we give, as people that counsel other people, we give people permission to follow their heart. So this book is like, if it's in your heart, it's in your chart, which means you should definitely do it. So it's helping people figure out, like, yeah, I've always wanted to. It's like, okay, well, come on, you always wanted to, right? How do we encourage ourselves to give ourselves permission to be what we're supposed to be? Right. And I know with me, I wanted to be a priest because I thought that was really cool. You could counsel people, be a priest, religious, little spiritual thing there, helping people when they get baptized, when they die. And they were like, girls can't be priests. I'm like, that sucks. So I didn't be a priest, but I love talking to people about their journeys and where they were and what they were doing. And I did it all my life. When I was in sales, I would walk into an office and somebody would be crying at the front desk. And I go, are you okay? I just heard my grandson has a brain tumor. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then I would say, I'd talk to them for a few minutes and then I would go see whoever I had the appointment with. And it was kind of a continuing story because I would come back and do programming and I would always check in on how the kid was, the grandchild was, because that person had kind of been put in my path. And I was just a regular person coming through, not part of their daily routine, but there to offer some support. And so that I did my whole life, whether it was counseling friends in college that just had a bad breakup or and I don't know anything. I just listen to people and hear them and we reflect back what we're hearing or we give them a way of looking at it, a little shift in the energy. And so when astrology came along and it's like I'm looking around and there's people that are making a living doing this magical thing where you're talking to people about their souls and most times people come like you come regularly now, but a lot of times people come when they're at a turning point and it's like, okay, here's your turning point. This is when it's the nice part is this is when it's going to end. Like you're going to be over this then. But they also like you're in the journey and understanding where you are in your journey of your life. So I that's part of the reason I fell in love with it because of how powerful the reading was I had with John, which made me go, he's like, oh, he's gone. You're going to get a whole new life. I mean, he's a guy, right? So he's gone. Didn't you break up with him 7 years? Oh, he's done. You should have kept broken up with him. I'm like, that's what my friends all said. But it was, here's your new life coming in. You don't even know what it is yet. And it was astrology, right? But you're getting a whole new life in the fall. And, you hear that and then you look back and you go, oh, I did get a whole new life in the fall. But what astrology does is tells you when the new life's coming in. So when you're rolling around on the ground, you can go, oh, I'm going to get a new life in the fall. You can hang on. When people go, I'm getting divorced. When's it going to be over? What are we talking? The paperwork, the emotions, the financial settlement, because they're all different. Which do you, all of them? I'm like, all right, so this is, when you go through what that process is going to be like for them. So it's very helpful, I find, because it gives an understanding. And a lot of times when you're going through times that are tumultuous, like now, it is a little thing to hang on to and to go, well, we went through this before. Europe went through this and they came out okay. They formed the EU. Berlin reunited. The USSR broke up. Maybe we're going to break up. What happens if the United States breaks up? Well, we'll be fine, because you can also look and go, the Pluto return for the country, which is every 250 years. Most countries last 250. Rome is still there, not as big. Germany's still there. England's still there, but the sun never sets on the British Empire anymore. It sets on it, right? So now it's us, our turn up to bat. So we have to figure out what our role is in the world. And we have people that are saying we have no role, or we have a role like this, and then the rest of us are going, but I like this role. So we're in that conversation, that discussion. And that's very important, because we're in that also in our own lives, because when the world destabilizes, we destabilize. So we have to figure out our own stable, what our vision is, and do that, because then we can hang on. You can go in your bathtub. I will also say Epsom salt foot baths. You don't have to get in the tub. Just get a little foot massager from Brookstone and put Epsom salts in and vibrate your feet. It works really well. You don't have to get all naked in the bath. You can do it for like 10 minutes. It's much more practical for those little. I actually have it in my bathtub in my second bathroom in Florida. I have a little foot massager, and I just get in there and sit on the toilet, put my foot in the foot massager for 10 minutes. It's perfect. Yeah. So just saying, March, with your tub thing. But understanding we need to do that support for ourselves. And then the other book I'm working on, it is a book called Pinball, because I think of a chart as being your programming. So it starts at 0 and goes through. And a lot of people look at it as little chunk. Well, I'm having this. And I'm like, well, no, what happened before? What's coming next? Don't you want the whole picture? And so I developed a technique that's about that, which I teach and people find very helpful. And regular humans can use it too. It's not like you have to be an astrologer to be able to follow it. But like when you're going to run into the hard time, when's it going to be easy? When does things flow through? And so you teach it to people and they go, okay, yeah, I'm in here. And then this is okay, that's happening. And then this is happening. So it gives an understanding of the energy flow. And so that's kind of a techie book, but when you teach it to regular people, they get it. They live it. You live your energy system every day. So that I start with this and then I go there and then I do this. There's like a process, kind of like your habits and routines when you get up in the morning, So it's a technique to help people understand where they are at any given time
So
in their
life changes, like it or not.
life changes exactly. Same river, but the river keeps changing.
And part of this is about figuring out what comes next as the river changes.
Exactly.
Not about you being required to change, although can you stay stuck?
Well, people can, but what I find happens is the universe comes and kind of pulls you. And then if you go, no, it goes, and then it goes, and then it goes, like think of the dogs on the street that don't want to walk and the owner goes and picks them up. Eventually you get moved along. And the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, they leap into change. The mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, they go back and forth and then they go along with it. The fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, they go, no, you're dragging me kicking and screaming into this change. It's like, you got to change. So everybody adapts in their own way. And, there's a lot of people that are like, I'm adapted. I'm like, great, you're a cardinal sign. The rest of us that maybe don't have that much cardinal are going, well, so it really is very chart dependent on, the people that always show up early, 15 minutes early, and then they bring a book because they know nobody's going to be ready for them. Those are the cardinal people. And they're ready to roll. They're doing it. And the rest of us are like, this is a lot. Cardinal people are like, next. So it's very variable by person too, right?
So Anne, we have 15 minutes
Yeah.
left, and There may be people who want to ask questions, but
Sure.
before we go to that,
Mm,
uh, or share their own oh my God stories,
yep.
before we go to that, I want to tell people that we've been doing some work on our website. So
Good.
if you want to sign up for our mailing list, go to our website at calledbyloveinstitute.com. And there's an easier way to find the subscribe. We hope it's easier.
Right.
Mary
And
Hoster has been
I, I would
working.
I would also say buy Marge's book. It's really good. Could put a plug out for your book. It's beautiful. Yes. So
It is a timeless book.
it's a
That's what
timeless.
I'm really clear about.
Yeah.
Timeless. And let's see if anyone wants to raise their hand. If you want to raise your hand, you can either do it this way by waving, or you can do raise hand on your computer if you know how to do that. Anyone want to raise their hand? Coral Rose.
Ross had he did it right.
He
he's
did
got
the,
his
Ross
he's
did the
got his hand up.
You go
Um,
first, Coral. I'll keep my hand up.
um, First of all, Marge, once again, thank you for hosting and bringing such lovely guests that are so fascinating. And it's been what a delight this has been the last hour or so, listening to your story and how that's evolved. And I don't know that I've been present to predictive astrology. Well, all astrology may be predictive. I'm a Virgo too. I analyze. It may be predictive. I I hear what you're saying about predictive and the energetic, which is so fascinating to me. So I definitely will be in touch with you. I'm a Virgo 1955. Virgo, I lose track, four signs in Virgo, Sun, Moon, Mars, and Venus.
okay.
So Capricorn rising. So
You're a Virgo
I
energy.
am. I am. So I will be in touch. What a delight. Thank you. And I'll pass it over to Ross.
Well, I was gonna say, Coral, one of the things with the astrology is the agriculture. And the Catholic Church kind of banned astrology back when they said
Mhm.
don't do predictive, keep it for medical. And Hippocrates said, if you're a bad astrologer, you're a bad doctor, and keep it for agriculture because it's tied to the growing seasons in the northern hemisphere with us. So Ben Franklin's Farmer's Almanac is astrology. And the growing seasons, like this year, is going to be a very hot summer because Jupiter's in a fire sign. Doing weather prediction, it's astrology. So it's
Mm.
all in there. But again, people don't really talk about it. But the middle part got cut out in Western. So a lot of people don't do it or do it, they do the natal, but I think it's very helpful to be able to talk to you. And also, you have an ongoing relationship. Like I've met with Marge a few times. And sometimes people come, like somebody came the other day. The last time I was here was 2001. And I'm like, all right, I know what you're going through because I know the cycle that they're in. Right. So that's the other part is understanding your bigger cycles. And Virgos do love astrology. Just want to let you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have
Well,
to
thank
say,
you.
excellent
Thank you. Thank you.
astrology. So yeah. So, but yeah, it's that that's they would say you're going to win the war or not. Should I go to war with that enemy and want to give the right answer to the king, or otherwise you're in trouble.
Exactly. Thank you again.
Welcome. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
Yeah.
And Ross.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Ross.
How are you?
Good.
My question really has to do with the United States, which you touched on briefly just a couple of times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, Everyone's very clear that a wrecking ball is going through our systems right now. We're in a
yeah.
very topsy-turvy environment, and we don't know where we're going to end up with it. Lots of different directions. It could be fundamentalist nation state. It could be a rogue power. It could break up under its own divisions.
Right.
Uh, what do you see for the United States? So that's the first question. Second question is that Marge and I are developmentalists. We really do believe that we can evolve out of current crises.
Yep.
and what do you see as the highest vision for it? So
Okay.
both the
So,
practical vision and the highest vision is what
okay. So what we're going to do is there's three big outer planets that change signs. So
Okay.
what happens is the Masons, the founding fathers were Masons and they were astrologers. And they elected a chart called the Sibley chart, which was published. Ben Franklin, 12 years after the Revolutionary War, went through England, gave the election chart for the Declaration of Independence to an astrologer named Ebenezer Sibley in England. So it was published. So we know the signing of the Declaration of Independence was signed with intent of the Masonic Code, which basically is be nice to other people, and then it comes back to you. It's got some layers, be an example for children, take care of your neighbors, no being a weenie, follow the rules, right? So it has a chart. And one of the things they did was there's mean planets in the sky, Mars. They put Mars in Gemini, which is brothers against brothers, siblings fighting. They put that in a weak house. So they made Mars weak. And they put it in Gemini, so siblings fighting. And so our enemies are weak, and then it answers to a retrograde Mercury, and they talk trash about us. But they take our money, they like us, we're benevolent, so they grumble a little. Now, what happens is the leader of the country has a chart too. Donald Trump has a chaos chart. Sun Uranus. Uranus is break things apart. Sun is Gemini. Geminis, we love Geminis, but they can not always tell the truth. Donald Trump's Uranus and Sun are right on the United States Mars. So he's here, the one really sensitive point in the chart where he's over there breaking us apart. And Gemini is brother against brother. Now, the last time, Uranus is a slow planet, 84 years. The last time it was in Gemini was June of 41. That was World War II, brother against brother, nation against nation. Time before that, Civil War. Got Missouri, got the Dred Scott Agreement. California's a state, got this whole middle section. What are they going to be? Slave or free? We fought a war, brother against brother, North against the South. Time before that, American Revolution, again, breaking free from the crown, Uranus was there then. So 3 times Uranus has been there. So we know we're supposed to break up somehow. We don't know what, but we know that Donald's here to do that stimulation of us and burn us to the ground. Because Neptune and Saturn are on the bottom of our chart, and he's basically burning the structures, right? The next one is Neptune in Aries. The last time we had that was the Civil War, 14 years. And we also had the war in Crimea, which we have now with Ukraine. None of us have lived through that either. I mean, people over 84 have lived through the Uranus and Gemini. And then last is Pluto in a Capricorn. Capricorn is countries and governments and structures and corporations. And Pluto shows us the corruption. And that's why nations fall after 250 years. So we have that happening too. And then we had the Protestant Reformation 250 years before that, where England and France got together against the church that was selling indulgences. Go ahead and sin, give me some money and I'll forgive you. Right? So we see history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So all of us need to go and look at these 3 energies that none of us on Earth have lived through before, unless you're over 84 or you're a vampire, over 84, and understand what is being asked of us. And so when we do that, then we get a clear vision. And so the Saturn, which is the structure we live in, is joined with Neptune, the vision. So we need to have a vision, and over the next 14 years, the vision comes in place. Over the next 8 years, Uranus is in Gemini, stirring things up. And over the next 20 years, 20, Pluto's in Aquarius, saying, what do the people want to do? Now, in that last Pluto in Aquarius, we also had the French Revolution. They cut off the heads of the rich people. I would be nervous if I was a billionaire, because we're looking and we're saying, hey, the people, Pluto and Aquarius, need to rise up and say what they want. And then we have all these other forces against it. Now, the good news is Uranus and Pluto met in the 60s, 1966, and they joined up, and that was the civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, and Vietnam War protests. And now, this last little bit, they've been having a square. Square breaks things apart. For the next 5 years, they're going to have a flowing energy that says, what's our vision of where we're going? And so that flowing energy is very strong. And so our job is to have a vision of what we want, because once we have that vision, we can get there and we can look at history and understand how dramatic it was. The other thing is, because the Saturn, the founding fathers picked a really good chart, they put Aries on the bottom of the chart. So Saturn and Aries, when we had the Revolutionary War, the redcoats would come in. They had the red coats and you could shoot them and they'd bleed, but you wouldn't stop. And they used to armies like this. And they got mad at the rebels in America. You're hiding behind the rocks and the fences. What are you doing? And we were like, we're not coming out and marching with your bayonets. Like, we're going to shoot you from behind the rock. Now we have a redefinition of war with this Iran business, where it doesn't matter how big your battleship is, because I can have a $30,000 drone come and take out your battleship. Whereas before, might makes right. Now it's like much more, it's back to the guerrilla warfare, except it's against us, saying we're going to come in and do Iran, and not so fast, and of course, who do we learn it from? Ukraine, back to the Crimean War, when they fought. And now the other thing that happened in the Crimean and the Revolutionary War was photographs. Film was invented. So those were the first wars that were photographed. And this war has been very unphotographed. So we see the alpha and the omega, right? We understand the power of images. So it's an interesting time. So I'm not going to tell you I know what's going to happen. I'm just going to say this is what happened before. And I know I'm voting for a society that takes care of people. Because remember, the peasants rose up in the French Revolution and they were starving. And they were like, what the hell? How similar is that now to SNAP benefits getting cut off? Healthcare, like go ahead and die in the parking lot because you're having a miscarriage, bleed out. Don't come into the hospital to do that miscarriage until you're almost dead. And so we're looking at the cruelty, which is always important, and saying, I don't want to be cruel. That's my posture on the world. It's like, yeah, you guys are cruel. I get it. But I don't vote for cruelty. I vote for being nice to each other and helping each other and really doing all the things that when we think about the Declaration of Independence. Now, remember, the Declaration of Independence is different than the Constitution, which comes next, because that was in kind of encoding white landowners and slaves at 3/5 of a person and a bunch of other stuff. But the Declaration of Independence was a very powerful document. And if you go through what it said it wanted, that's all the stuff that the current people in power are going after. Habeas corpus, the list of things that they said to King George they wanted. And now it's like, no, we're going to take them all away. And it's kind of like, no, we've had that for 250 years. Come on, stop it. So our job is to go stop it. I don't know if you've ever seen the Bob Newhart video, Stop It, where she wants afraid of getting buried alive in a box, and he goes, stop it. So we have to say that, but we also then not just say stop it. We have to say our vision is children are fed, people are housed, people are not afraid of going bankrupt if they're sick. They're willing to go to the doctor because they're ill, and it's not going to cost them an arm and a leg. It doesn't have to be the way it is. We just have to agree what we want instead of fighting with each other. And the fighting is the key, because divide and conquer, right? And that's what they're doing. So we have to go, not dividing me. I have a vision. I'm going to go find my friends that have the vision, and we're going to work on it. So it's very local too, because these planets are local planets. So it's, what are you doing in your own neighborhood to stop this? And then that models things for other people to copy and do, because we go, oh, that's an interesting way to do that. I think we should try that in our town, right? So that's the goal. And then, we are very ingenuity. We've got ingenuity. We have a vision, and everybody should read the Declaration of Independence at least once a week. And how am I helping make that happen? Being governed by the people, for the people. We, the people, not we, the government, we, the corporations, not we, the billionaires. It's we, the people, want this for our fellow people. You want to scare me? You want to say I'm better than this person because they have a different skin color or they're from another country? We were a nation of immigrants. We were built. I mean, I'm an immigrant. My parents, my father came over from Germany. My mother came from Ireland in the potato famine. My grandfather came over with the Dutch East India Company and traded beaver pelts up in Albany. So we're all immigrants, except for the people that were indigenous. And it's a nation of, so saying we don't want immigrants, it's like, that's how we got where we are, you know? So, but then again, it's saying it in a way that we honor, you know, and not say like Donald does, I want immigrants from Sweden and Finland. I'm like, they're not coming here. They have health care, you know, but other people are coming here, you know, so it, it's a really interesting time. And it also is, I'm encouraging people to go on, you don't have to know astrology, but go on the internet and ask ChatGPT or ask the Google, say, give me a list of Gemini words and give me a list of Uranus words. Give me a list of Aries words and Neptune words, and give me a list of Aquarius words and Pluto words, and then pick from each list. So back when Uranus, planet of chaos and change and weird, was in Pisces, the sign of the feet, we had Crocs and Uggs invented, which are very ugly shoes, but people wore them. And the Crocs had little holes so you could put the decorations in them like a Virgo likes to, because Virgos always have little decorations, little glitter. So get a list of words and then do those words every day, because that's the energy that the universe is asking us to do. And then if you know your astrology chart, add the house that those planets are traveling through. But even just a list of Gemini words and Uranus words and doing those every day, you'll be like, okay, you know, I'm supposed to help a neighbor. I'm supposed to talk to my neighbor. I'm supposed to open a door. I mean, because Gemini rules doors. I'm going to help my neighbor carry the luggage. You know, it's very easy, but it's making it conscious and saying, I'm going to write my senator, even if I don't think they listen to me, but I'm going to go protest. I'm going to do things with my local neighborhood to make a change. And then for the Neptune and Aries words, I have a vision. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to see a vision of what I want to build over 14 years. I have a vision of what it should be like. I have a match that lights the way because it's Aries. And then the Aquarius is, what is my responsibility to my community and my fellow humans? Why am I here? With what's our group relationship about? And how do I work in that group relationship? What's my contribution to the community? So very powerful time. And we're all lucky to be incarnated and going through it. You signed up for it. So we all have a job, right? And also finding hope, you know, because that's the other piece, because sometimes it can be a little hard. But when you find something, you know, I watch America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent, because whenever I'm having a bad day, like yesterday, the chicken lady, she works in a supermarket. They go, what do you do? She goes, I roast chickens. She sat and sang. Her mother's there, her kid's there. She got the golden buzzer. Everybody's standing and screaming and yelling, and you know, and that community supporting the creative spirit of the soul. So I find it in those videos, and I also like to watch We Rate Dogs, because this guy looks at dogs that are very helpful every day, and I look at that and go, "Oh, that dog did a good job," you know. I'm a Virgo because we like small animals, so I look at the dogs. No.
And
Does that make sense? Yeah.
we are out of
Out of
time.
time, I know. I get going, Marge. I'm sorry. Ross, did that answer your question?
It does. I've got a follow-up question, but we're out of time. So,
Oh, Marge will let you do it. She's
well, people,
Go ahead, go
luminous.
for it, Ross.
Yep.
so when we're talking about setting a vision, which I agree is very important,
Yeah.
and I've hung around with a lot of visionaries.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, One often finds in all visionaries that they don't walk their talk.
Right.
Okay. The drafter of the Declaration of Independence being one of them.
Yep.
Thomas Jefferson, all men are endowed by their creator by certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Owned 700 slaves, was terrible with his money, was a big spendthrift, had a slave who was the father of 6 of his children, 4 of which survived to adulthood that they denied. And then, all those people, like 140 or 50 of them got sold on his front lawn in order to settle his estates,
Yes.
okay, including his own children.
Right.
And so there's always not walking the talk, which could either be seen as duplicity if it's deliberate, or hypocrisy, or whatever.
Mhm.
And at each of these stages, it seems like we're clearing it up a little bit, but that shadow comes in the next thing that has to be resolved. So that didn't
Totally.
get solved at the beginning, so we had to fight the whole Civil War about it.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
the nation's, all the nation state ideas. We
Mhm.
had to get that cleared up, and we started the United Nations and NATO and those alliances and the EU and all of that now, which are now being all questioned.
Because
So
the Uranus and Gemini, they're all breaking apart.
yeah,
Yes.
so exactly. So what do you see as the hypocrisy that needs to be cleaned up, that might come with this new vision?
That's a good question. I think the hypocrisy is we forget, when we're in the moment, we think we're right, right? Because it's at the moment, that's the background we're in. So like if you're in a movie theater, you're in that moment. And then when you go out, you realize, oh, there's daylight out here. And the beauty of astrology is every sign corrects for the problems of the previous. So Aries is all go, 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 and Taurus is grow, grow, grow. We don't have to run around, but they're very fixed. Gemini is make choices, make choices. Cancer is nurture and grow it, pick one and take care of. So each sign corrects for the excesses of the previous sign.
Okay.
And they also look at it and they go, like Leo, I'm a Virgo. I'm like, oh my God, those Leos, all they do is play. And I'm a Virgo. And the Libras say, oh my God, those Virgos, all they do is work. We understand that is how we progress, that is, we have to have the shadow. And so from his part, all men are created equal. It didn't have women. And he's talking white men that own land and people, because when they got to the Constitution,
Uh-huh.
the Southern, to get the South to come in, they had to count their people as 3/5 of a person, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
we understand that that's part of it. So we have to look at the hypocrisy and go, yeah, but the guy had a good idea.
Uh-huh.
But
Doesn't,
there,
doesn't
there's
make the
always
idea
there's
wrong.
always
Right.
problems. In corporate, I remember with my boss, I said, we just centralized. Now we're decentralizing. She goes, yep. And then you decentralize, and then they go, okay, now we're centralizing. Yep. It's this swing. It's a pendulum. It's not a perfect, but it evolves forward. So I think the thing that we're going to be short-sighted about is the other part is this, we look at the degree of the things. The zero Aries was 7,000 years ago when we went from the fertility goddesses to the Bronze Age, basically the beginning of patriarchy. Men figured out their sperm made babies and they made metal and they could go take your land. So we're not only seeing the demise of patriarchy, because the twos are a feminine number. We got 2,000 years of feminine coming. So we're going to watch the feminine shift, which we're really seeing a backlash to with the misogyny. Michelle Obama's a man, that kind of crap. But it's also like going, no, the only reason you're here is you came out of a woman's uterus. Like, behave yourself. So that shift is really in motion now because we're just into it. So it's also, are we going to, instead of strip, because we've been in earth and water for 100 years, because there's also another cycle called the Great Migration. We've shifted out of earth and water. All of earth has been explored. We have landed everywhere, except maybe that island Ivanka and Jared want. We are going now towards what? Where we have to work and live sustainably on earth. We can't just keep taking from her. So we have to learn to partner with her better because we're shifting into air. So it's a major change. So the idea is hopefully we're more flexible in terms of how we do things. We go, well, let's try this out and see how it works. And if it works, we'll keep it. If not, but the building of the industrial world that's gone on for the last 150 years when the great cycles were in Earth shifted. And it had a mutation in 2000 in 1980 when John Lennon got killed and Reagan was shot. He had an astrologer. So he said to Nancy, I forgot to duck but Lennon got killed, which was the idea of imagine. And now we had a mutation into air with the 2020 conjunction about what is the role of the people in the group. And on that December 20th of 2020, Donald sent that email out saying, come January 6th, we'll be wild after that big fight in the Oval Office. And he kind of set the next 20 years. So we're working with that energy of rebellion, but also like, what's your vision of the structure? And how do we need to change it to support us? And what does that look like? And so that part we don't have yet. But our job is to be open to, well, why not? So living in New York, we have Mondami. I mean, they were going crazy over him. And people were, people in Texas complaining. I'm like, what do you care? He's our mayor. And New Yorkers are really, we get rid of them. We don't like them. We let them stay, but we don't like them. We're gone. And, that guy at the Knicks was, I have a Muslim mayor, I have a Jewish bagel, and my Knicks won, right? Chanting and screaming, so it's understanding that guy presented a different vision. People, I'm like, well, let's see what he can do. He's got some ideas. Why are you picking on him? Just let him try the ideas. There are sections of the city that have no grocery stores. He put a couple grocery stores in. What's the big deal? And and so you have to go, why are you mad about that? You live in Texas. New Yorker, I'd like them to be fed, but at the same time, we have to honor, we may have a reaction because it's electric and people are like, what are you're changing it? It's like, yeah, it's okay to change it. Isn't it? Why do you care? Is it affecting you? If it's affecting you, then you have a right. But if it doesn't affect you, mind your own business. Come over and help, or go make your own changes, whatever they want to be. So that part's going to be very unnerving for people. But we also see all the people rioting in wherever that island is, that country. I'm blanking the A name, and they're yelling and screaming like, you sold our island, And we had Hungary, So don't count the group out, because when the group gets mad, they make the changes, and that's what they did in the revolution. That's what they did in the Civil War. That's what they did in Europe during the World War II. So we're going to be doing some stuff. And our job is hopefully to do it nicely rather than with problems. But the goal is, what's your vision? Because if you're focused on the vision, you're going to get there. And that's, and your own individual vision first, because that holds your heart. And then when you're standing in your heart place, then you're coming from your heart and you're creating with love and abundance and joy what you would like to bring, to the potluck of the world. And that's your job. And that if we stand in our own heart space and we do our heart's path, then we're going to be fine. And encouraging people not to be afraid to stand in their heart's place, because that's the part that, be afraid, be very afraid. And I'm like, no, don't be afraid. Don't go reading that stuff saying the world's going to end. Just kind of go, okay, what would you do if the world, how would you help the world not end?
Right.
Come up with a plan.
Thank you so much for that. I know Marge is trying to bring us to a close. Thank you.
I know
Marge.
she's like waving her hands there, and I'm completely ignoring her, Ross. She wants to go and hang out with Ed, right, Ed? Then she's coming to hang out with you. Yeah, so it's good. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so
Well,
much.
I'll stop now, Marge. I'll stop. I'll be
part
good.
of this wonderful, wonderful call. And we'll see you next month on July 15 with you and Townhead, who is going to talk more about vision and how you can implement that in your life in ways that honor all of the parts of yourself. And so sending you much love and deep joy. And peace that passes understanding.
Yeah.
So it is.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Bye-bye.